Hello everybody, this is me, Amin.
And this Alex.
And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About. So the date today of this recording is Thursday, 19th May. The show is going to come out a week after this. And in this episode, we're going to talk about 5G in Malaysia and the ongoing story of what's going on with 5G. It's sad actually because 2 years ago, during the Tun Mahathir era, we had Gobind Singh as the Minister of Communications, and he put out like a really strong framework, a really good framework of 5G deployment. So it started out with a consortium model of 5G deployment, and I think that's kind of like an okay way to go in terms of deploying 5G. And we started out Malaysia started out as one of the leading countries in the region to deploy 5G. That was over 2 years ago.
Yep.
And then now we've switched government from Tun M to Muhyiddin, and then now we have Sabri Yaakob, Ismail Sabri.
Yep.
And then we have three ministers of communication. Previously we have Gobind Singh, and then we had Saifuddin.
Yep.
And then now we have our ever popular
Tan Sri Anand Musa, Mencom.
I don't even remember his official title. It's so long.
I just
It's
call
like
him
Engineer Tan Sri, Dr. Pakcik, Uncle Haji, whatever lah.
Yeah.
So what has happened? Just a bit of a recap, right? So we talked about 5G deployment in Malaysia in a number of our episodes in LTA. So for those of you who are not following or have forgotten, the story is 2 years ago we started out with the consortium framework, and then with the change of minister we had Saifuddin come in, and I think that was the time when the government started talking about this single wholesale network model.
Actually, in fact, nothing happened during Saifuddin's time.
Oh, he didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything. So everyone's waiting
It's like what's going on?
What's
right?
going on? Nobody knows what's going on.
Yep.
Everything's on hold. And there's one moment of time Saifuddin was saying that, there's no point having 5G yet, because
focus on LTE deployment.
Yeah, focus on LTE deployment, which is good, but at the same time, like at least you need to give some education.
Yeah.
Everything's on hold until My Digital came along towards the end of the
My
year.
Digital framework, right?
Yeah, and suddenly, they realized that 5G is important. So, let's get the ball cracking. Yeah.
So after that, we changed government again from Muhyiddin Yassin to
Ismail
Sabri, and then we had a new Minister of Communications, and this story of a single wholesale network came to be. In search.com, we were very vocal about this single wholesale network deployment. There are a number of case studies around the world where countries have tried this approach and they've failed tremendously, miserably. It doesn't work. So a single wholesale network means somebody or an entity has full control of this resource to deploy 5G, and operators only can subscribe to this entity. So we talked about like the downsides of this is who has the vested interest to take care of this 5G network to ensure that the best levels of service is being provided to the customers, right? Whether it's the telcos or to the consumers directly themselves. And why is there a need to develop a single wholesale network when we have telcos that are very interested in taking care of their customers and very capable of deploying 5G themselves? Why not look into a deployment where the strongest win? Meaning that you give a conditional allocation of the 5G spectrum to the telcos, and if they don't deliver in terms of what they are asked to deliver, then you revoke the license and get somebody else to do it. There's so many other permutations to deploy 5G in the country, and single wholesale network is not one of them. It's not the way at all. So this week, Alex wrote a very interesting article on search.com, and I think it caught a number of people's attention as far as I can gather. So the article, the headline is, while 5G is still up in the air, Malaysia's telco have lost 26 billion ringgit in market value. What is MCMC doing? Right? Yep. So what is this article about?
So as you know, like most of the telcos in terms of the KLSE, right, they're normally high performing, right? To add on to that, right, the government has a lot of investment in them. Companies like EPF, KWAP, and even PNB, they also have invested in telcos as well.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past 2 years, and this article is actually based on a report by The Edge, because they highlighted that, collectively the telcos, the public listed telcos at least, including TM, Axiata, which owns Celcom, Maxis, and DG, they collectively have lost 26 billion ringgit in value. For example, to elaborate, Maxis has lost over 9 billion in value as the shares has fallen 21% year to date. DG, they have lost 7 billion in value year to date. And also Axiata Group, which owns Celcom, they lose about 7.3 billion. And TM, although they're the best performing public listed telco, they lose 2.6 billion ringgit. And that's a huge concern. And according to The Edge, this is mainly due to the persistent uncertainties over 5G and how it will change the industry dynamics does not help. And they added that probably investors who subscribe to the sell first, ask question later mantra could be affecting the decline in stock prices.
So how did we get to this position in the first place? Okay, so you started out with the single wholesale network, right? So the government had like a very hard line stance. It's like, okay, this is the way to go. Telcos, you better fall in line or else, right? I think DNB was developed. It was under the purview of Minister of Finance.
Yep.
But is regulated by MCMC, and I think we had like quite a number of challenges trying to get answers, right? So we've been reaching out to MOF, to MCMC. So we ask MCMC says go ask MOF. We ask MOF say go ask MCMC. So we've been put in a loop. So that was before, and then I think the government was trying to push, or whoever there is that's behind the single wholesale network or has a vested interest in the single wholesale network is trying to push the telco to comply. And the telcos, namely Celcom, DG, U-Mobile, and
DG.
What's the other one? Celcom, DG, U-Mobile, Maxis.
Yep.
Are pushing back and saying, look, this is not the way to go. But because this industry is heavily regulated by MCMC, they also risk action by MCMC, and it could hinder their operation. So there's really not much that they can say. I'm not saying that the CEOs are using us as a conduit, but we are observing the industry.
Yep.
And from what we can tell is that Maxis, Celcom, DG, U-Mobile completely disagree with this.
Yeah, and also like for example, okay, the reason why this whole this decline is partly due to the uncertainties, and mainly because remember that all telcos, right, regardless Celcom, DG, Maxis, U-Mobile, and even TM, right, they always invest into the network infrastructure, and also when they do this investment, they also go the talent pool, and all that. So and don't forget that they also have investors, foreign investors as well. Yeah. And before this, the telcos have the spectrum. They have the right to deploy the network, to build the network to cover as many places as possible. With DNB and the single wholesale approach, what happens after 4G? Does it mean that the telcos will be reduced to just mere MVNO? So you're just like a retail provider. Yep. So you don't need to do it. You don't need to
maintain the network. No need to invest into building network, growing network.
So what happens next? So it looks like the telcos have been reduced to just mere, how do I say in
subscribers? They are subscribers.
Yeah, so it's going to be like MVNO, like similar to TuneTalk, XOX. That I'm offering telco services, but I don't own the network. Yeah, that's about it.
They stop being builders,
more like salesmen,
and then they're just selling somebody's supply.
One thing about single wholesale network is that, like you mentioned earlier, that it has failed. A lot of attempts of governments try to do single wholesale network has failed. One good example with Mexico, so they have a single wholesale network. It failed tremendously. In fact, it was declared bankrupt, and even the coverage targets, they were not hitting it, and the government has given them further extension to meet those targets. Yep. And similarly, in South Africa, they also considered having a single wholesale network. Yep. Eventually, they scrap it. Okay, you know what? This is not good for industry. Let's open up the spectrum for auction. So at least that will increase the telco competition. Okay,
so let's look at the flip side of the coin. What is the government's justification to say that, okay, single wholesale network is the way to go?
The way they position this is that, okay, this is the best and fastest way to deploy 5G because number one, we're behind other countries. Obviously, I don't know, okay, guess
who put us behind other countries?
That's right. And we need to speed it up. We need to find the most efficient way to deploy. And they find that with the government in control, they can deploy it more efficiently than telcos.
That is the government's justification. It's like, we know network better. Essentially, that's what they're saying.
And they're saying that, we are supply-driven, not demand-driven. So basically, we're going to deploy coverage even in the kampong places where the telcos don't want to cover at all. And then we work on a cost recovery model. We're not about money, we're for the right.
Okay, so that was the justification, right?
Yes.
that is what the government was saying to justify the deployment of 5G via a single wholesale network.
Yes.
Why I highlight that is because the action is contradicting what they're saying. Number one, they're saying is what's this, demand driven, right?
Yep. And then we will bridge the digital divide.
Yes, but all of their 5G networks right now are available in urban areas.
Yes, particularly in the Klang Valley. Right now they deploy in Johor. And if you look at the roadmap, right, it's no different from how telcos will roll out 3G and 4G.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The problem here now is while DNB, the purveyor of this wholesale network, is apparently regulated by MCMC, your next question in the article is what is MCMC doing? Is exactly that. What is MCMC doing? Who will police DNB, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they seem to have a lot of power, and nobody's like really saying anything.
Actually, they are actually being regulated. Okay, regulated in the sense that MCMC has said that they will treat DNB like a regular licensee, like a telco. So if they don't fall in line, they'll get penalized as well. But the issue here is because of the reason why I wrote about this is because of the RAO. So before the telcos can sign up for the access, right, they need something called the reference access offer. So that actually sets a condition, okay, how much you're going to charge for 5G, what's the commitment, what's deliverables, what's the quality standards and all that. And the problem with the RAO, right, is that before it goes out, it needs to be vetted through the MCMC. MCMC should act as a mediator to make sure that, okay, this offer is in compliance with the legal framework and also is something that is fair for everyone, for the telco, for the supplier, which is DNB. And when the RAO is released, right, a lot of telcos seem to be disappointed, and they actually issued a joint statement saying that the RAO that's published, right, did not address the concerns that were raised by telcos to the MCMC before that.
Yep.
So it's like, you know that the telcos, they're not happy about this deal. I mean, they should find a middle ground to make sure that, okay, both parties happy before publishing it. And this goes to MCMC. But yet, it still didn't work. So a few pointers to highlight here. Like in the RAO, right, in terms of pricing, DNB is charging telcos 30,000 ringgit per gigabits per second for the first 1,200 gigabits per second. And then subsequently, we reduced to 22,000 ringgit as a discount.
Yep.
And this pricing is locked for a period of 10 years. 10 years. So from what I can gather is that telcos, they find this is too expensive. This is a very expensive cost because, as you know, the demand for data is growing year on year.
Yep.
I think if you look at the annual reports for most telcos, you can see data increase by 40-50% because we consume more videos. And as the network improves, more people are going to consume more content on the go.
Yep.
And looking at this pricing, right, it doesn't show how DNB is going to ensure that the cost of data will be cheap for the rakyat. Because at the end of the day, right, we're going to use more data. The cost should reduce. Like, for example, you get a 4G plan like maybe 7-8 years ago. 1 gigabyte costs about 30 ringgit or 50 ringgit. But now it's as low as 1 ringgit per gigabyte.
Yeah, it's most operators are providing unlimited.
Yeah, or at least 1 ringgit per gigabyte or less.
Yep.
So the price should go down. But in this RAO, it's fixed for 10 years.
Yep.
Like, if I ask you, will you sign for a plan that's locked for 10 years? Same price?
Obviously not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not prudent.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So why should so that's the reason why I think telcos are hesitant to sign this agreement, because they don't see how this is going to be viable for long run. Because if more people use 5G data and it's going to cost that much, they can't sustain.
Yeah, I think that's one good example and one of the biggest pain points that operators are having with DNB. And I think you raised the question because MCMC should be a stronger mediator to balance the requests of the telcos of what DNB wants, and also to take care of the interests of the people.
Yep.
It seems to me that MCMC is not doing that. And at the same time, DNB also put out an offer to say, okay, a single wholesale network. We still believe that single wholesale network is the way to go. DNB should still be the operator of the single wholesale network. But instead of DNB being an entity by itself, we're going to open it up to operators to buy a stake in DNB so that, hey, you're part of it and you have vested interest, so you'll be taking care of the network as well. And they put out a deadline, right?
Yeah, 30th of June. So what happened was that the Ministry of Finance, because they 100% own DNB, so they offered to reduce the stake from 100% to 30%, allowing the telcos to take 70% stake. So, okay, I give you a 70% stake to participate. And so far, from what we see, and based on announcement by Mancom, he said that TM and Yes has agreed. But the rest, so far no news. Still in discussion right now.
So, okay, here's the funny part. Again, this Mancom fella is a funny guy, seriously. He said that. So the operators he mentioned, right, Yes and TM, has not officially put out a statement or anything.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, right, like TM is a public listed company.
Yep.
If they actually sign on with DNB for the stake, right, the very least they should make an announcement. They should at least inform their shareholders.
They should be proud about it.
Yeah, they should probably, yes, we are signed on with
We're the
DNB.
first to sign up
Take a
because
stake.
we want to develop 5G for the nation.
Yes.
I mean, YTL should do it even more because you know, they're a small player and they have a lot to leverage on this.
Yes.
I mean, to a certain degree, I really pity YTL because I feel like they kind of like have like their arms twisted in a way that okay, we have to comply. With TM not so much because they are GLC, so whatever the government wants, they probably just do it. And I feel like Maxis, Celcom, DG, and U Mobile are the ones with the balls right now.
Despite whatever that's happened, because prior to this, right, there was a lot of ding dong last year. So in December, I think after much resistance from the public, the industry, and the telcos, the Ministry of Communication said, okay, let's revisit this single wholesale network. They are actually considering other options. Should we continue or not?
Yep.
And after much discussion with Ministry of Finance, they said, okay, we're going to stick to single wholesale network because they think it's a good way to go. And the telco said that, okay, agreed. Let's move on. Let's not waste more time. Let's go on with single wholesale network. So the problem right now is that before they can proceed is the signing of the reference access offer, which is what we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fair. So why would they sign it? And the concerns were raised earlier, but there's no change to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I'm like the average Joe just watching this and listening to this podcast, my question is like, why is the government still pushing for a single wholesale network when the industry is saying no? Why are they forcing the industry to do something that they don't want? Because previously the industry has been doing fine without such heavy government intervention. In fact, I think during the best period was during Gobind Singh's time. I think he was very strong and very strict on what telcos need to do. He played the regulator role very well, and it kept operators in check.
Especially the MSAP, the mandatory standard access.
Yep.
So because of that, right, we managed to see a huge reduction in terms of broadband pricing, and we see more competitors more competition in the broadband space, using the HSBB network, and you can see like broadband plans for less than 100 ringgit easily now.
Yeah, and I think during his period, I mean, I'm not trying to say that he's the best, but we look at the results, and I'm not saying that okay, I support him or whatever. I just got to make it really clear. But during his period, we saw prices go down, we saw speed went up, and we saw services improve.
Yep.
2 years after that, now with the new Mancom, I really fail to see any good lah. I'm not saying that the things are becoming worse, but I'm saying that it's not becoming better. It has kind of like stagnated, which is scary. What do you think MCMC should do?
So I think number one is MCMC should play their role as the regulator properly, and to ensure that if you want 5G to get off the ground immediately, find a middle path. I mean, try to solve this problem once and for all, because the telcos have raised the issue even before this 70% stake offer.
Yep.
And try to find a middle ground to solve it. And from what I can see, right, is like they're not budging it. Like for example, the cost concerns. There's also transparency concerns as well, because from the looks of it, DNB is also offering 5G core networks, and that could potentially threaten telcos that have MVNO customers. So let's say, for example, brands like TuneTalk or XOX and all that, right? They could possibly go direct to DNB, and it's not very clear whether they will have the same requirement and minimum contract commitment as the big telcos. So that could possibly be a deterrent, and it could be a big disadvantage to the big telcos. And another thing is about quality of service. So during online forum that's organized sometime in April, so the CEO of MCMC was on board, and he highlighted that they want to settle the cost concerns on DNB in a couple of weeks time. I think that was April 20th. Now it's already like May 19th.
It's all lip service.
It's really a month. I don't see any progress at all.
Yeah.
And he did say that in terms of pricing, there is actually a tool in MCMC called the mandatory standard of quality service, but
5G is not included.
5G is not included. In fact, from what I understand, 4G is not even included, because that only covers fixed wireless, fixed broadband, like TM and HDBB and all that stuff. And another thing about the quality of service, right? He said that, the current MSQS document, will set the standard for wireless broadband. But as we mentioned in the previous LTA, right, about quality of service, it didn't cover 5G. So the current MSQOS document, the standard is for wireless broadband service, you should provide latency of not more than 150 milliseconds. That's pretty high. And a download speed of not less than 2.5 megabits per second. We've raised this before, like, hey, 5G is coming. It's not good enough. 5G is coming, and then the standard is so low.
Yes, and we talked about the standards, and I think it's too consumer-centric. When you look at 5G, the promise of 5G is not speed, actually. It's connectivity. It's about being able to connect all devices to the internet and allowing almost zero latency. So potentially allowing your cars to connect to the internet, your phone, your home to be connected to the internet. It's the promise of the Internet of Things in the future, and the standard is not living up to that future. So if I can summarize this in a way that I understand this, right? Despite whatever Mancom is saying, what I can see right now is Mancom is not doing his job. It's just lip servicing. From devices, from peranti siswa, from network, from telco services, all the way to 5G, there's not been a real call for drastic or changes or improvements in the network policy, network whatever in Malaysia from the current Mancom. That's number one. Number two is that MCMC is in the dark. I feel like there's like a kind of like a tension going on. There's camps. Like Mancom is doing something else, MCMC is doing something else, and because of that, MCMC is not policing properly. They're not regulating properly, and because of that, the industry is kind of like all over the place right now.
Speaking of that, right? Remember Zahidi Zainul? The guy also said in Parliament that, I also don't know what's going on here, maybe Ministry of Finance know better about telco than us. Like, he's kept in the dark. And he calls for transparency. Like, what's going on? It's even within the ministry, right, they're not in sync. And that's troubling.
At the end of the day, when it comes to things like this, the victim is us. We've become one of the first countries in the region to state that we're going to deploy 5G. We were one of the fastest, we even beat Singapore when we wanted to deploy 5G. I mean, in terms of we were up to that standard lah.
We want the target to launch commercial 5G in Q3 2020, and now it's like 2 years after.
2022. We technically have commercial 5G services, but and that was when the single wholesale network was committed, right? And then they said, we have this deadline, they're going to deploy. And they deployed terribly. They just deployed like pockets of 5G. And because none of the telcos signed up, they deployed it for free. You can go get a Yes SIM card, or I don't know whether TM is also available. Unify is also 5G.
To be fair, in terms of rollout, I think they are still on schedule because they start switching on the network in December, so they cover the central area.
Yes, but okay, where I'm coming from is that they did that in a way just to check a box to say that I've done it. I say I'm going to deploy this date. I've done it. But what is the quality of the deployment? What is the usage of the deployment is another thing altogether.
That's right. And then speaking about TM, right? So TM was one of the first to announce that we're going to participate in DNB's 5G pilot trial in December. So it turns out that, surprise, surprise, Yes was the first to roll out 5G, and they're still the only telco offering commercial 5G services. 5 months on, TM has yet to provide a single 5G product into the market. And that's troubling. Like, if TM's not on board, right, like that just shows me that they're probably not confident in the network.
The way I see it now, among the telcos, it feels to me like YTL is okay. Whatever the government wants to do, we're going to support it.
Just gung ho. Let's just push it.
This is for the public. I think their interest is at the heart of it. Their interest is for the public, right? They're doing this. Okay. Then you have the I want to say the bad boys, but it's the people that don't want to fall in line. Maxis, Celcom, DG, U-Mobile. Because commercially it's not viable for them. It's not viable not just for them, but for an industry. So they are majority of the industry. Majority of the subscribers are within these 4 telcos. And they immediately will not have any say if the deployment of 5G is done in this way. And then we have Telecom. Telecom is like, okay, we are kind of like an extension of the government, and we have to do this because we are part of the government.
We have to support law, no choice.
and because of that, they kind of feel like they are government.
Yeah, in terms of mobile, TM's definitely lagging behind. They are mostly focusing on fiber. In fact, I don't hear any new updates on mobile products for years already.
Yeah, they don't have any new updates on mobile products. They don't provide mobile contracts with devices. Very bare bones. So they just, again, it feels like it's the government way of doing things. Like, okay, we have it. I can report it in my annual report that I have a mobile service. I can say that, I am a full-fledged converged
Convergence.
telco because I have content, mobile and fiber and services. But the two key things, which is mobile and content, are terrible offerings.
Yeah. The thing is, some people are saying, oh, you know what, screw the four telcos, DMB can just roll out with YTL and TM. But that's not enough because guess what? Unify and YTL is like how many percent of the market share? Because the big four telcos, they command like 95% of the market, I guess, in terms of mobile subscriptions.
Yep.
So DMB needs the four telcos. These are their four biggest clients.
Yep.
Because if they don't get these four telcos on board, you think they can survive with just two small players? They can't. How are they going to secure financing? If you're a bank, right, and the DMB because, hey, can I borrow money? I need to deploy the network. But who are your customers? What? That's it? How are you going to sustain? They definitely need the four telcos. But the strange part is that if they need the four telcos, I don't see them attempting to meet in the middle with the telcos because ultimately the four telcos are their biggest customers. And I don't see that happening. It's like, no, we are the 5G network. You want? You come lah. That's it.
But okay, on the flip side, I'm trying to be fair to the government. On the flip side, they've already kind of softened their stance from a hardcore DNB is DNB to now DNB is open. You can buy shares, but it's still bullshit lah. Because if I'm running a telco right now,
why do you buy a stake
now?
now?
I don't see DNB as something that I want to buy in.
Because think about it, you offer the stake now, right? But the decision has already been done.
Yep.
The roadmap has already been confirmed. You already signed Ericsson as the vendor.
Yep.
Like, what is the contribution right now?
Yeah.
Everything's set in stone. You already hire vendors and contractors already.
Yeah, and if I buy a stake, what control do I have? Am I in the board? What is the structure here?
We don't know yet. So
they have not mentioned that, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet. So that's why everything is still up in the air, and that's so frustrating. I'm not seeing any movement because of this.
If you're a telco, what should you do? What are you going to do? Or what would you advise the telcos to do?
Obviously, it raise concerns with MCMC because if, let's say, DNB is not meeting halfway, you need to ensure that the deal is fair for you before you sign on the 5G. As much as you want to roll out 5G, it has to be fair to you and to ensure that this is viable for the long run. Like we mentioned earlier, the concerns, especially the costing, I don't think that's something that anyone would want to sign up for. Like, I don't want to sign for a plan for 10 years with a locked price. It has to really gradually go down. It needs to be a clear roadmap that, okay, this is how much it's going to cost now. Maybe you're going to revisit in the next 2 years. Maybe like a clause to say that we're going to change this in the next 2 years, or this is a projected cost.
Yeah.
And you can show that, okay, this is how much the cost will go down as consumption increases.
I mean, I can understand that it's quite difficult to project costs and whatever, right? But it's also quite funny that DNB says that they are a cost recuperating business, but their model is more like a money making model where you lock in the
10 years.
the 10 years price, right?
Yep.
Now we think about okay, is there a better way to do this? I can think of one good way. Like you mentioned, data consumption increases regularly, and it's something that is predictable because more and more people will want to come online. More and more people will want to buy devices, and more devices will be connected to the internet, especially when 5G comes on board. If I was sitting on DNB right now, instead of locking the price structure, I would lock the consumption structure in a way that, okay, telcos, you must commit that your customers must use X number of data within 10 years, or every year you must use this much, because that's tied to a cost.
But then again, it still needs to make sense. I mean, it
makes sense because I am now, because it's not tied to a hard cost. That means, right, I'm not artificially pricing my product to be able to pay for this cost that I'm locked in for 10 years. What I can do now is incentivize my users to use more of my data, and how to do that is to add things on top of what I currently provide. So if it's a plain vanilla pipe, I can add more stuff, and I'm incentivized to make my service compelling to allow customers to use my data. And if it's designed that way, instead of it's locked down by cost, then DNB is incentivized to make the network better and better and better as the years move along. Because you can predict that, okay, within 10 years, people will be using 50% more data, and our customers, which are the network operators, have committed that they will incentivize people to use 50% more data. That means me as DNB, I will have to make my network more efficient, 50% more efficient to cope with the throughput.
If let's say the incentive is based on the actual user experience, I think it's fine. But at the end of the day, it's something that is fair, and that's something that's comfortable for all parties to sign on, because eventually it's like right now in the current state, like 10 years for fixed price, it doesn't work.
For sure. Fixed price doesn't work. So it's either you. So if I'm a supplier, right? Okay, you want to lock the price, that's fine. But I can kind of predict how my growth in terms of earnings, not from locking the price, but from telling you, okay, I need you to get 1 million people on my network. Let's say if you're Maxis, right? Okay, Maxis, you need to lock in 1 million subscribers or 1 million devices. Okay, then Maxis is incentivized to market more devices to people, or to introduce more product lines that introduce devices that can be connected to the internet.
I think that's a given, right? We don't need DNB to push that, because eventually all telcos want to upsell the 5G network.
But the thing is, if you're upselling, but the cost should be lower, then you're artificially increasing. You're artificially keeping the price high. You're not incentivized to get people to use more devices. You just tell them, okay, our price is locked. You don't have a choice. Whether you use one device or 10 devices, you have to pay a fixed amount. That's the problem.
I don't really get it, because at the end of the day, consumption will definitely increase. The data and demand will definitely come, but the crucial is how much you're going to charge, and is that charging mechanism fair? That's the only thing.
Yeah. So where I'm coming from is, you know that the demand will increase, but the quantum of the increase can be controlled in a way that if you incentivize people to use more, then you can increase the quantum of people using the network rather than the price. That means with more people using the network, then with the volume, then you pay more, despite the price is less.
I think that's already in place in the current RL, because what they do is they do a 2-tier pricing. The first 1,200 gigabits per second is 30,000. Beyond that, it's cheaper at 22,000 gigabits per second.
Yeah, but it's locked for 10 years, right?
It's locked for 10 years, yeah.
That's the concern.
So the difference is, it should whichever model it is, right? It should be reviewed, I think, on a more regular basis, maybe every 2 years or 3 years, depending on the market situation. Because the cost of data, the backhaul to DNB, will definitely be reduced year on year. So it can't be they're charging the same cost for 10 years.
They're just making money on top of something that they've built for 10 years.
Yeah, and because Ministry of Finance said the reason why they want to do SWN is because it has the best cost efficiency, but it's not reflected in this document.
Again, it's a matter of lip servicing and what they're doing, whether it's reflecting what they're saying, and obviously it's not. Yeah,
if let's say this government initiative, okay, we're going to do it for rakyat, I can set the cost now. Okay, every year we're going to decrease the price by this much. If they say there's a price increase, whatever, the government, since it's a government entity, they will step into, I don't know, subsidize or what, to make sure that it's really efficient for the rakyat, because they believe with cheaper price data, you will have bigger benefits in the long run.
It has ripple effects over the economy and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So
if the Ministry of Finance step in and do that, I think that's something that's workable.
Yeah, they're not doing that at all right now.
Yeah. And here's another thing, people always equate, okay, DNB is like TM. See, TM is it's actually beneficial, right? A lot of people go out. And the thing is this, it's not the same. DNB and TM's fiber network are not the same. Because firstly, right, okay, a lot of people always say TM's a monopoly. It's not. Because firstly, right, the fiber rollout is not monopolized by TM. I say again, it's not monopolized by TM. Anyone can roll out fiber if they have the money. Yep. And about HBB, right, some people say that, it's 100% funded by government and just ripping money, but it's not. The government only give them a couple billion. The bulk of the investment,
20% of the cost or something like that.
Yeah, bulk of the cost is actually borne by TM. TM made that investment, and because of that subsidy from the government, they roll out in places with no demand.
Yep.
But in the same time, other telcos like Celcom, Maxis, or DG, or even Time, you're free to roll out your own fiber network. We have seen that. I know even Celcom, they have their own network in Sabah, fiber network. So that's great. However, DNB, that's different, because only DNB can roll out 5G. Because number one,
spectrum.
The spectrum, the all spectrum, the 700 megahertz, 3.5 gigahertz, the 26 and 28 gigahertz millimeter wave. At the same time, the telcos are not allowed to use the existing spectrum for 5G at all.
Yep.
So
completely different.
Completely different.
Yep.
So you can't compare that with TM HBB.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much it in terms of our discussion of what's going on with 5G today. The situation is not getting any better. Where we stand on this is, I think for me, single wholesale network is not the way to go. No matter how you cut and slice it. We talked about like, okay, if you really want to make single wholesale network to work, DNB has to be more customer centric in a way lah. They have to say that, okay, this is our commitment, and this is what we will deliver in the next 5, 6, 10 years, and we will ensure blah blah blah. Right? They don't even have the decency to do that. Other than saying that, okay, this is the price, we're going to lock it for 10 years, which tells me that they are more interested in making tons of money from this rather than helping the rakyat.
Let's say the government do proceed with SWN model, and this was highlighted by GSMA, right? So if you want to continue SWN, the MCMC must provide like a robust regulatory framework, and it's the duty of the regulator to ensure that the framework is clear, transparent, and the mandatory pricing is available for everyone so that everyone can reach an agreement.
Yeah.
So it needs to be clear cut, because the existing framework doesn't seem to be sufficient to.
It's not up to date at
it's
all.
not up to date.
Doesn't even look at 5G.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that's another point, right? So if the government really wants SWN to work, and they want DNB to be in the driving seat, then they have to at least assure the industry and the rakyat that DNB is not above the law.
Yep.
It seems to me that they are. DNB is. The regulator is like really scared to touch them.
So how soon can you use 5G? I do not know.
Soon. You can go to Singapore and use 5G, or you can go to another country and use, because we have 5G phones.
I mean, you can use it. You can use it now on Yes Network, which is quite spotty.
It's pointless. I mean, nothing against Yes, nothing against YTL. I think the CEO is a great guy. It's just that they are stuck in an unfortunate situation. That's all, and they're trying their best to do whatever they can. Right? Despite that, they have something out. And I think that's great. Compare that to Telecom.
5 months later on, where's my 5G SIM?
That's pretty much it. If you like, we're also available on podcast, so you can catch us on Spotify and any of your podcast favorite podcast platforms. Just search for Let's Talk About Soy Chin Chow, and we're there. If you're listening to us on podcast, give us a 5-star rating, because that helps the show a lot. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you like the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And comments, suggestions, feedback. We love to hear them from you, because we just like ideas, and we would like to hear what you think. For those who are listening to us on podcast, you can drop us a voice note as well. Just send them over to
Let's Talk About @soyachinchow.com.
And if we do get a voice note, I think we'll put them on our show if it's interesting, or a very thoughtful or a very well thought about comment. So we'll put them on our show. Okay, that's pretty much it. This is me, Amin.
And this is Alex.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.